Between the period of the High Renaissance and the Baroque, art came to an impasse. Problems of representing nature had largely been perfected, and artists were left wondering what to do following the death of Raphael in 1520. From that point until about 1600, many artists strove to make original work that departed from the divine masters Raphael and Michelangelo. And that brings us to Mannerism. As Rome was sacked, so too was the art world. A coincidence, but co-incidence nonetheless. Mannerism is so called because of the Italian term di maniera, meaning a work of art done according to an acquired style, rather than depicting nature, which had been the goal, now achieved, of the High Renaissance masters. Mannerist painting, sculpture, and architectural works of art and the artists themselves stand out because of their predictable eccentricity. Who were the Mannerists? Rosso was a man who lived with a baboon and dug up corpses because he was fascinated with the process of decomposition. Cellini wrote a most arrogant autobiography describing his life of furious activity, yet only about 24 authenticated works survive. And Pontormo was a loony paranoid. He was a hypochondriac obsessed by fear of death. He lived alone in an especially tall house he built to isolate himself. The garret room was accessible only by a ladder that he pulled up after himself. Were these guys nuts before art, or because of art? Or because of the difficulty they faced in redefining art in the shadows of giants? Who knows? Be sure to look at your information page on Mannerism and how it compares to the Renaissance ideals. Mannerism is a lot like gossip. A lot of Michelangelo and Raphael get lost in the translation, but it is highly inventive and successful anyway. Little left now to do but look at some strange paintings and sculptures. This is Pontormo's Descent from the Cross, and it's quite a shock after Michelangelo and Raphael. And Pontormo departs from the High Renaissance in three ways. First, his color. It's bright and out of tune. It reminds me of a cheap TV set. Second departure has to do with the figures. They're twisted, distorted, and elongated, none of which particularly contribute to the story. And a third difference from the High Renaissance has to do with space. It's crowded and illogical. Now, one cannot judge these works with what I call Renaissance eyes, hence the term Mannerist as opposed to late Renaissance. Now, this painting, Descent from the Cross, is also called Entombment. Pontormo's self-portrait can be seen in the head to the far right of the painting, just where the arch begins. Parmigianino is another Mannerist artist whose work features certain distortions. Yet his work of elongated figures demonstrates what is easily and readily admired in the Mannerists, a certain elegance in their work. The long neck, fingers, and child bespeak a certain gracefulness that other Madonna and Child representations did not fully achieve. The influences of Raphael, in terms of sweetness, Correggio, his teacher, and Leonardo, the sfumato, show up quite nicely in Parmigianino's work. Pontormo's student, Agnolo Bronzino, demonstrates the different character or substance of Mannerist work. An allegory of time and love is not particularly shrill in its color or drawing, like his teacher Pontormo. Bronzino's twisted figures here reveal a twisted story. Who knows what is going on? So not only does the work of these artists differ in style, but also in content and presentation. This is not an art of a neat and tidy theater. Mannerist sculpture shares much with its counterpart in painting. This is the work of Benvenuto Cellini. And Cellini, as a person, also shares much with the characteristics of Mannerist art in his enthusiasm for exaggeration and shrouded meaning. Cellini was first of all a goldsmith, as evidenced by this work, and he also documented his successes in many other fields of art and otherwise in his biography, which as a matter of fact is still in print today. His proficiency resulted in the following: 2 seals, 7 coins, this one piece of goldsmith's work, 7 sculptures, 1 wax, and 1 bronze model. Cellini makes Leonardo look absolutely like a man who left no task unfinished. Serious texts state that at the very least his life makes interesting reading. We'll race to the library. This is Cellini's sculpture Diana of Fontainebleau, and Diana is highly reflective of the casting off of nature as the ideal in Mannerist art. We see vast jumps in scale within the figure, and here the idea of combining 2 adults of very different scale is resurrected. These artists look to art, not nature, for their style. They are somewhat akin to the 20th century abstract expressionist painter Arshile Gorky, who would take his students outside to show them where nature was wrong. This is The Rape of the Sabine Women by the Mannerist Bologna, and he was a sculptor whose merits Michelangelo might even have praised. He combined the Mannerist twists of his figures with Michelangelo's potential for action and consideration of the vertical axis in creating a true 3-dimensional work. Different views of this sculpture work equally well. In fact, they often seem like different works, and this is no small accomplishment. Mannerism was not so bad after all, once one's eyes get accustomed to a different formula for art. This painting is Perseus and Andromeda, and the artist here is a decent painter in the Mannerist style, but he was much more important as a writer and biographer of many Renaissance artists. It's Giorgio Vasari in this case. And looking at Vasari's work here, we see someone who perhaps was best suited to writing. This concludes our brief look at Mannerism.